Jim Ruppert and Dave Kane, and we're here talking area football as we preview the high school football season. Dave, 5 schools. Give me 5 schools that are going to be in the playoffs, no doubt about it, this year in high school football in this part.
Well, I think as far as no doubt about it, playoff-wise, I think you have to start with Auburn in the Prairie State Conference. Auburn's a lot of kids are back this year for Auburn. They kind of caught fire toward the end of last season. They have a young quarterback, but an already experienced quarterback, Michael Bates. So I think Auburn, you have to look for them in the Prairie State Conference. Concord Triopia. A lot of these household names will come up. Concord Triopia in the WIVC North. They lost Taylor Yale, who was their leading rusher, but they have David Arndt back, who rushed for almost 1,000 yards last year. They have all of their starting line back. So they should probably duke it out, I imagine, with Mount Sterling, Brown County in that division.
Kind of opposites there, because Brown County puts it up a little bit, don't they?
They do. They throw, although I think this year they may be a little more balanced. But they do have really good numbers for a 1A school. So I think a lot of coaches think that division will come down to those 2 schools.
A little bit of come up and so for Jacksonville route this year, which is going to have a little bit of a drop off. Has been really good the last couple of years.
Yeah, a little bit. Although Barry Creviston, the coach, seems to think that they have the talent. It just hasn't been tested. They could maybe give Triopia or Brown County a run for their money on a given night. So that could be an interesting conference.
What do we know about the South Central Conference?
South Central, it's going to be interesting on several fronts. In the South Central West, Carlinville right now is kind of being given the nod, at least in the coaches' poll and so forth.
Don Borgini didn't leave the cupboard bare when he left Carlinville to go to Vernon.
Not totally. Chad Easterday is now the coach there. He's been an assistant there for a long time. They do have to replace the quarterback and one of their top running backs, and they did lose T.J. Bullion, who was a very good fullback for them last year. He transferred to Palmyra Northwestern, who co-ops with Greenfield.
Who's the team to beat in the West
in the WIVC South, and maybe we'll get to that in a second. But Carlinville does have 3 very good running backs, Reeves, Simmons, and Darnell Scott. And they were all
track team guys,
sprinter types on the second-place state track team. And they have a very experienced offensive line. So Chad Easterday feels like they have enough athleticism and enough experience on the line where they'll be pretty strong in the South Central West.
What about the South Central East? How does that look?
It's kind of maybe a little bit of a year of transition, a little bit. For many years, maybe Greenville or Hillsboro. Staunton has kind of gradually worked their way up.
Veteran quarterback.
Yeah, T-Ski, and he threw for 1,300 yards last year. A big kid, about 6'2", 240, but he can throw the ball. And they do have a couple of good running backs that combine for maybe 1,000 yards between them. And just Mike Parmentier has just gradually built a solid program. Greenville will still be strong, but they have a lot of people to replace. Hillsboro will be okay. And, of course, Aaron Duff is coaching at Hillsboro now, his alma mater, after being at Greenville. So that's kind of the way it looks in the South Central.
Let's go back to the other side of the WIVC. We talked about the North. How's the South?
Right. In Greenfield. Greenfield last year had kind of I don't want to say a turnaround season, but for them, the first really good season in a long time. They didn't lose many people. John Ryan Hammond, a very good receiver,
who's in that part of that co-op with Palmyra Northwestern.
Yeah, he was a very good receiver. He did graduate, but Sean Berry is back, their quarterback, threw for about 1,000 yards. Kyle Barrow, who's their running back, only a junior, he rushed for about a little over 1,000. They have a few people to replace on the offensive line, but they get T.J. Bullion, who was a very good fullback and linebacker for Carlinville last year, rushed for a little over 500 yards, and I'm sure he's going to help them tremendously.
Pole vaulter, good upper body.
Pole vault, yeah, just a good athlete. So, I'd have to say Greenfield in the WIVC South right now.
Let's backtrack, come closer to home, back to the Sangamon County area. Who's going to be the rivals for Mount Olive? Has dominated the Prairie State. Is it going to be a down year for Coach Don Dobrino in his 50th year at the helm,
or however year it is? I don't know. I don't want to say it'll at least the last couple of years. I think Mount Olive has won like 11 games apiece 3 years in a row. That would be asking a lot this year.
They might have the best running back coming back, though, in Rademacher.
Rademacher, he was like the leading area rusher last year, or at least leading guy coming back. Very strong fullback, but they did lose a couple of their big linemen, including Scribner. They're going to have a new quarterback, a couple other new halfbacks. So I think that Mount Olive system will still win them a number of games and they'll make the playoffs, but they might have trouble challenging Auburn. I was just going to say in Prairie State too, Riverton should be pretty strong. They did lose Joe Watorick, but they have a lot of the linemen back. They have their Vanderwall is back at quarterback. So Riverton could maybe challenge Auburn, but again, I think it comes back to Auburn in the Prairie State.
We're going to have a little bit of shuffling in conferences next year. Rochester has 2 more years to play in the Corn Belt Conference. They lose the state's all-time leading passer, Will Lunt. Does Derek Leonard just load up again? Are there enough athletes out there that a little bit of a drop-off, but he's got a quarterback waiting in the wings?
Sean Robinson, who is a junior, I think he's kind of been mentioned as the heir apparent maybe for a couple of years now. He is a junior. He can do maybe more things than Will Lunt done. I mean, as far as just athletic, he can maybe run the ball a little more. He's a very good player to kind of have a rebuilding situation around. Derek Leonard, though, they did lose, other than Will Lunt, they did lose quite a few seniors. Derek, he doesn't want to use that word rebuilding, but he has a lot of shoes to fill, both on the line and skill position people. It could be a pretty challenging year for them in the Corn Belt. They have to open at Muhammad Seymour, which will be no bargain. Game. And they play Jerseyville. Their one non-conference game. They play Jerseyville in Week 3, which could be interesting for them.
Name us one sleeper, Dave, in the central in the area outside of the city of Springfield, a team that may be going to sneak up on people. We haven't had a team play for a state championship in a while. Is this going to be the year that ends?
Well, it could be. You know, I've already mentioned Auburn a couple times, and they have the potential to really make a long run in the playoffs. And Greenfield and Triopia have a potential to make a long run. It's going to be interesting to see what Don Borgini can do at Gillespie. He has a lot of juniors. They may be a year away from really breaking through and making a long run in the playoffs.
Program that's been down a little bit lately, the Gillespie program.
Yeah, it has, just with the numbers and everything. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just numbers-wise, but they may be a year away. Other than that, I don't know if there's another really a dark horse, so to speak. Williamsville, I think, could be heard from in the Prairie State, but I really think Riverton, despite the loss of Joe Watoric, they have a new coach in Josh Lee, although he's been there as an assistant for a while. I think they could make it interesting in the Prairie State too, and they have the potential to maybe, if they can replace Joe Watoric, they could make a run, maybe a few rounds into the playoffs.
Check back next week when we talk about the big games in the week on the small schools among the State Journal Register circulation area.